You are standing on a coastline that should have changed everything. The sea is low, the wind is dry. Somewhere beyond the water, there are empty continents waiting. Europe, Asia, Australia, the Americas. Lands where no modern human footstep will ever appear. A small group of ancient humans reaches the edge of Africa. They carry stone tools, they know fire, they know hunger, fear, memory, and grief. Behind them is the only world their species has ever known. Ahead of them is the doorway to the entire planet. But in this timeline, they stop. Maybe the climate shifts too fast. Maybe the herds turn back. Maybe disease, desert, or rising seas close the path before anyone can cross it. Whatever the reason, one thing changes. Homo sapiens never leaves Africa. And because of that single missing journey, the world you know never happens. No cave paintings in Europe, no first humans in Australia, no ancient farmers in the Fertile Crescent, no cities in Mesopotamia, no pyramids in Egypt? Maybe. No Rome, no China, no Maya, no Vikings, no New York, no Tokyo, no internet, no global civilization, just one continent carrying the entire future of the human species. Modern humans originated in Africa, and the story of our species includes many attempts and waves of movement out of Africa over hundreds of thousands of years. Some earlier human relatives left Africa long before us, and Homo sapiens eventually expanded widely after developing the flexibility to survive in many environments. But what if that final expansion never succeeded? At first, the change would seem small. A few bands remain within African landscapes instead of moving into the Levant, Arabia, Eurasia, and beyond. They continue living as hunters, gatherers, coastal foragers, toolmakers, storytellers, and survivors. They move with the seasons, they follow animals, they learn rivers, grasslands, forests, deserts, and shorelines. Africa is not one environment. It is a world inside a continent. Rainforests, savannas, mountains, wetlands, lakes, deserts, coasts. Almost every survival challenge humans could face already exists there. So humanity does not freeze in place, it still changes, it still adapts, it still invents. But the difference is this: humans never become a planetary species. Outside Africa, the world remains dominated by other animals and other human relatives for much longer. Neanderthals may continue in Europe and Western Asia. Denisovans may remain in parts of Asia. Other archaic human populations may survive in isolated regions. Without Homo sapiens arriving, competing, mixing, or replacing them, the map of human evolution becomes stranger. Not one human species spreading everywhere, but several branches of humanity occupying separate worlds. Europe might remain a Neanderthal continent, cold valleys, ice age plains, mammoths moving under gray skies, fires glowing inside caves, groups of powerful, thick-bodied humans hunting in dangerous landscapes. Without Homo sapiens entering their world, Neanderthals might not vanish when they did. Their future is uncertain. Climate pressure was still brutal, but they would no longer face one of the greatest disruptions in their history: us. Asia could remain even more mysterious. Denisovans, known mostly from ancient DNA and fragmentary fossils, may have continued across huge regions. Other ancient human groups could have lasted in pockets of mountains, islands, and forests. The Earth might not be empty of humans outside Africa. It might be filled with different kinds of humans, each one adapted to its own world, each one carrying a different answer to what human means. But inside Africa, Homo sapiens keeps growing. The population expands and contracts with climate. During wet periods, green corridors open through the Sahara. Lakes appear. Rivers swell. Animals spread north. During dry periods, deserts return like walls. Communities become separated, then reconnected. Languages diversify. Tool traditions split. Myths change. Bodies adapt. Knowledge becomes local, specialized, and deep. And because no one leaves the continent, Africa becomes not just the birthplace of humanity, it becomes humanity's entire universe. This would create a very different kind of progress. In our timeline, humans spread into nearly every climate on Earth. That forced rapid adaptation to Arctic cold, tropical islands, high mountains, open oceans, dense forests, and new animals. It created separation between populations, different pressures, different inventions, different agricultural experiments, and eventually different civilizations. In this alternate timeline, innovation still happens, but the pressure is concentrated. Humans master African environments more deeply than ever before. Coastal groups become expert fishers and shellfish collectors. River communities learn seasonal floods. Forest groups develop complex knowledge of plants, poison, medicine, and tracking. Savanna hunters refine cooperation and long-distance planning. Desert edge communities learn water memory, where to find it, when to move, when to wait. But the great question is agriculture. Would farming still happen? Almost certainly yes, but not in the same way or at the same speed. In our timeline, agriculture arose independently in multiple regions: the Fertile Crescent, China, Mesoamerica, the Andes, Africa, New Guinea, and elsewhere. If humans never leave Africa, those non-African farming centers never exist. No wheat fields of ancient Mesopotamia, no rice agriculture in China, no maize in the Americas, no potato domestication in the Andes. But Africa has its own domestication history. Sorghum, millet, African rice, yams, coffee, oil palm, and cattle traditions all become far more central. Instead of civilization spreading from several global centers, the entire agricultural future of humanity depends on African plants, African animals, African rivers, and African climate cycles. The Nile becomes even more important. In our timeline, the Nile helps support one of the most famous civilizations in history. In this alternate timeline, it may become the spine of the human world. Not just one civilization among many, but perhaps the first great corridor where large settled populations can gather, store food, build permanent structures, organize labor, create calendars, and develop ruling systems. But here's the twist. Without contact from Asia or the Mediterranean world, the Nile civilization would not be Egyptian in the way we know it. No imported crops from Southwest Asia. No wheat and barley foundation in the same form. No same bronze networks. No same trade routes across a populated Near East. The society that rises there would be African from root to roof, built from local resources, local domesticates, local symbols, local conflicts, and local gods. The pyramids, if they exist at all, would look different. Cities might still rise along the Nile, Niger, Congo, Great Lakes, Ethiopian highlands, and southern African river systems. But they would not be part of a connected old world. There would be no Mesopotamia trading ideas east and west, no Indus Valley, no ancient China, no Silk Road, no Mediterranean empires, no global chain reaction where one invention jumps from one civilization to another. Every major leap would have to happen inside Africa. Writing might emerge, but its form would be different. Metals might be discovered and developed, but the timeline would change. Long-distance trade could connect coasts, deserts, rivers, and forests, but there would be no Eurasian exchange network to accelerate it. And the absence of other continents would change disease. In our timeline, dense farming societies and domesticated animals helped create many infectious diseases. Different regions developed different disease environments, and later contact between continents became catastrophic, especially in the Americas after European arrival. In this alternate timeline, there is no European colonization of the Americas because there are no humans in Europe from our species at all. There are no Native American civilizations either because Homo sapiens never reaches the Americas. The Americas remain a continent without modern humans. No Clovis hunters, no mound builders, no Maya cities, no Aztec empire, no Inca roads climbing the Andes, no human-set fires reshaping landscapes, no agriculture based on maize, beans, squash, potatoes, tomatoes, cacao, or chili peppers. Entire ecosystems evolve without human pressure. Mammoths and other large animals may survive longer in some places. Giant ground sloths might persist. American landscapes remain wild in a way our timeline never allowed. Australia also remains untouched by Homo sapiens. No Aboriginal cultures stretching back tens of thousands of years, no dreaming stories, no fire stick farming, no human transformation of landscapes. Marsupials, birds, reptiles, and ancient ecosystems continue along a different path. This is one of the strangest parts of the timeline. The world becomes biologically richer in some places, but culturally emptier. So much art never exists. No Lascaux, no Chauvet, no European Ice Age figurines, no rock art in Australia, no ancient American temples, no Chinese oracle bones, no Greek epics, no Sanskrit texts, no Roman law, no Japanese poetry, no Andean quipu, no Norse sagas. But Africa's cultural world becomes unimaginably dense. Instead of human creativity spreading across the planet, it layers itself across one continent for tens of thousands of years. Languages multiply, oral histories become vast. Ritual landscapes deepen. Rivers, caves, mountains, and migration routes become sacred archives. Every valley may hold a story. Every water source may carry ancestral memory. Humanity becomes less global, but not less human. The technology path also changes dramatically. No wheel in Mesopotamia, no chariots from steppe cultures, no Chinese gunpowder, no Mediterranean ships crossing between Europe, Africa, and Asia, no printing press in Germany, no industrial revolution in Britain, no modern science emerging through the same global collision of Greek, Islamic, Indian, Chinese, and European traditions. But that does not mean no invention. It means invention follows different problems. How do you cross the Sahara when it turns green, then survive when it dries? How do you organize trade through tropical forests? How do you move heavy goods along rivers? How do you preserve food in heat? How do you govern societies spread across huge ecological zones? How do you record memory in a world where oral tradition may remain stronger than written bureaucracy? A human civilization contained within Africa might develop technologies we never prioritized. Better heat-adapted architecture, more advanced water tracking, sophisticated ecological calendars, deep botanical medicine, river-based transport networks, desert navigation systems, animal management suited to African disease zones, political systems built around mobility instead of fixed borders. The world would not be primitive, it would be different. But there is a danger. If all Homo sapiens remain on one continent, the species is more vulnerable. A global disaster does not need to hit every continent. It only needs to hit Africa hard enough. A supervolcano, extreme drought cycle, pandemic, asteroid impact, or long climate collapse could threaten all modern humans at once. In our timeline, human spread became a survival strategy. By occupying the planet, we made extinction less likely. If one region suffered, others could continue. But in this alternate timeline, humanity keeps all its eggs in one continental basket. For tens of thousands of years, that might not matter. Africa is huge. Its environments are diverse. Its populations could survive many disasters by moving, splitting, and adapting. But eventually, concentration becomes risk. A severe enough climate event could shrink populations into refuges. Knowledge could vanish. Languages could die. Technologies could be forgotten. Entire regions could empty. Humanity might survive, but it would be repeatedly knocked back. This could delay large civilization for thousands, maybe tens of thousands of years. And outside Africa, the other human species face their own fates. Maybe Neanderthals survive longer, but eventually climate instability reduces them. Maybe Denisovans remain hidden in Asia. Maybe Homo floresiensis-like island humans continue in Southeast Asia for longer than in our timeline. The planet becomes a museum of parallel human experiments, but separated, fragile, and isolated. Then comes the most haunting possibility. What if, much later, Homo sapiens finally develops advanced seafaring from within Africa? Not 60,000 years ago. not 40,000 years ago, but perhaps 10,000 years ago, or 5,000, or 2,000. A coastal African civilization builds ships and crosses into Arabia, Europe, or India. And when they arrive, they find not empty lands, but other humans. Not people like them exactly. Neanderthal descendants, Denisovan descendants. Archaic populations with their own tools, languages, rituals, and histories. First contact would not be between continents of Homo sapiens. It would be between different human species. That would change everything. Would they trade? Fight? Interbreed? Fear each other? Worship each other? Enslave each other? Learn from each other? Our timeline had moments of contact between Homo sapiens and other humans, but they happened deep in prehistory, before writing, before states, before cameras, before philosophy could ask what rights another human species might have. In this alternate world, that question could arrive much later, when societies are larger, more organized, and more capable of both compassion and conquest. Humanity's greatest moral test might not be race, nation, or empire. It might be species. And if Homo sapiens eventually spreads after all, the world they enter is not the world we entered. It is older, wilder, and filled with surviving cousins. The global story becomes slower, stranger, and more dangerous. But if humans truly never leave Africa, not ever, then the final picture is even more unsettling. Earth becomes a planet with one bright human continent and many silent ones. Africa glows with firelight, languages, cities, songs, graves, markets, kingdoms, tools, gods, wars, love stories, and memories. The rest of the world moves without us. Forests grow, glaciers retreat, animals migrate, mountains erode, rivers cut through empty valleys. The Americas never hear a human voice. Australia never sees a human campfire. Europe never becomes Europe. Asia never becomes Asia in the human sense. The planet remains full, but history becomes smaller. And maybe that is the deepest shock of this timeline. Leaving Africa was not just a migration, it was the moment humanity stopped being a regional species and became a planetary force. It created beauty and destruction, art and extinction, cities and empires, languages and wars, science and climate change. It gave us the modern world and every crisis that came with it. If humans never left Africa, Earth might be wilder. Many animals might be safer. Some ancient human cousins might survive longer. Entire ecosystems might remain untouched. But you would not be here watching this. Because the story that made you, your ancestors, your language, your food, your city, your phone, your map of the world, depends on one impossible chain of footsteps. A group of humans reached the edge of Africa, and in our timeline, they kept walking.